Hi everyone, thanks for coming to my presentation. My name is Lisa Gabbert and I am an associate professor in the Department of English here at Utah State University. The title of my talk is Expanding, Rethinking, and Reworking Activities, Roles, and Relationships of Successful College Students, the ETE conference theme, Strategies for Inclusion and Accessibility. And as I read that now, I realize how Englishy that title really sounds. But what I want to do today is just take a few minutes to do some brainstorming exercises to rethink or reimagine what it might mean to be successful in the classroom. This is based off of my own experience. I come from a very traditional background, very conservative colleges and universities where I got my various degrees, different era. And so this has been a useful exercise through various kinds of ETE training that I've done that I would like to share with you today. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is take a few minutes to brainstorm. You can pause this recording if you like, or you can just listen along. But let's think first of all what traditional definitions of success actually are. And for me, again, coming from this very traditional, conventional background, student success generally means an A or B in the class, or at least a passing grade, depending on what class it is. Earning the course credit in order to further future goals. I think that's very important to students still. And then finally, of course, the mastery of the content or the skills being taught. That is very important to us as instructors as well. Now, again, what I'd like to do in a few moments is just expand that idea of what success might actually look like. But before that, let's take another moment to brainstorm about what the conventional student roles, the conventional student relationship is with the instructor, and conventional student activities are. So again, you can pause this recording for a few moments, jot your own ideas down on a piece of paper, or just listen to the ones that I have. Okay, so let's start with the student role. I think, the most traditional and basic role of for a student is that of a learner. And certainly in the classroom, one important relationship is the relationship of the student with the instructor or the professor. And what does that relationship look like? Well, for me, when I was in college, it was definitely a student basically lacked authority. Number one, the student was generally in a submissive position with respect to the instructor. It was a very hierarchical relationship, and also it was semi-formal. Now, of course, that's changed a lot, but I do think, for me anyway, those are the assumptions that I still tend to bring with me in the classroom, that the student is in the learner role. The instructor or professor-student relationship is defined by some of these terms to some degree. Of course, I'm working on that to lessen that. And then, what kind of activities define a successful student? Well, active class participation, for example, regular attendance, the completion of the homework, and, likely strong grades. So those for me, again, coming from my own background and the era in which I was in school, are kind of my default in the back of my brain. And those are a lot of the assumptions that I tend to bring to the classroom. So now what I'd like you to do is pause the recording again and look at maybe an alternate, or brainstorm some alternate ideas of student success. And I think what constitutes success for students in the classroom obviously can be different for every student, but those ideas have also been really redefined, or we've been working on redefining them and rethinking them in the post-COVID era, where students really struggle with so many different kinds of issues. So again, take a few moments and just jot down some things of what success might actually look like. Okay, my ideas were basically, and this was just, sort of imagining myself as a student and, thinking about what, apart from those conventional ideas, what it might look like. Maybe it's to become, for example, a better human being. That would be a great thing, and I think that's something we would all want our students to have, and for us as well, to enter the semester and exit the semester a better human being than when we came in. Maybe one idea of student success is students have fun. I have really been trying in my classes to make them more fun. So maybe having fun while learning something. Of course, it's always gratifying, at least in the English department, to have one's views about the world change. When my students write and say that they see the world differently, it really is gratifying to me, and I really feel like that student has succeeded in becoming, in some ways, a better and different human being. So having one's views about the world change. Of course, learning to think critically, I think no matter where we are in the university, that's always important. Maybe it's something as basic as overcoming social anxiety in order to attend class, right? That I have really struggled with student attendance in the past couple of years. I do think it's related to COVID. Maybe student success is something as basic as learning what a college course looks like. A lot of returning students, college looks very different for them. Maybe someone who's never had the ability to attend college until now, who doesn't come from an academically or college-oriented family. So these are just my ideas of what alternate ideas of student success might look like. Now, how might envisioning success in different ways help us conceptualize those roles, relationships, and activities of students? Well, I went on basically, my own ideas of, having fun, learning to think critically, maybe becoming a better person. And what I found was, in addition to that learner role, of course, the student will be learner. A student, the role of to achieve those kinds of ideas about success might be, maybe their role is to be open to challenge. Students. Encouraging our students to be more open in many ways. If an idea of success is to have fun, maybe their role is to be engaged and to be playful in some kind of way. Maybe it's to be committed to the process of learning, whatever that entails, or to allow room for exploration. So in addition to that learner role, the ways that we can learn, and of course teachers are learners too, is to allow these other aspects to come into the classroom a little bit more. And then in terms of relationships, particularly the instructor-student relationship, equality and respect. So if we want our students to be open to challenge and to be open-minded, of course, we have to cultivate an atmosphere of respect and equality. An atmosphere of honesty, and where we can, as professors and instructors, acknowledge our own mistakes, give honest feedback to our students, and for them to be committed to that process of learning and criticism and feedback and revision that's so important to the learning process. We can conceptualize our classrooms as maybe a partnership with our students, or maybe we are fellow travelers. These are just words I came up with, or maybe the instructor is more of a guide than anything else. So these are just ways to reconceptualize that relationship. And then finally, the activities. Rather than those conventional activities of, doing homework, getting good grades, attending class, participating. In addition, we might think of, activities as identifying strengths and weaknesses, and we can certainly do that as instructors as well and model that for them. Becoming uncomfortable with ambiguity. If one is to be playful and engaged and challenged, of course, ambiguity is a big part of that. And sometimes I feel like at least I don't allow enough ambiguity in my classroom for students because it is uncomfortable if we don't know what's going to happen or what's coming next. But of course, life is not clear and straightforward either. So there's a lot of ambiguity in the real world as well. Maybe just showing up, if students are having problems with anxiety and coming to class, maybe just showing up is a definition of success. And of course, oops, my little thing is in the way of this, reading something. This is important for us in the English department, and I think across many disciplines, reading something that is difficult or that the student is unfamiliar with or that they disagree with. So learning to be, again, open and to challenge oneself in various kinds of ways. Okay, so what tactics and strategies might be useful for enacting some of these things? Now, some of them I have done, some of them I am in the process of doing, some of them I am just thinking about in certain kinds of ways, but I'm going to give you a few strategies and tactics. So in the short term, that's immediate. So this is the middle of August. What can I do immediately for my classroom that might expand those roles, relationships, and activities for students, make them more inclusive, make them more accessible. No penalties for late work. If the student is busy or has a lot of life issues going on, maybe letting them turn in work at any time during the semester might be a way to help them have more fun, be more engaged with the class in some ways. No penalties for mistakes, and redos are always accepted. These are strategies that I have incorporated into my class. And what I have found is that while I give deadlines, most students meet the deadlines, and the ones that need the extensions take it, and they can turn in anytime during the semester for full points. And if they don't like what they're graded, they can always redo it. The great thing about these strategies is that anytime I have a student in which the Disability Resource Center asks for accommodations, I've already given the accommodations. My students already have them. I don't have to do anything different because all of the students have the required accommodations already in place. Maybe just points for showing up. I do take points for attendance and participation, and in some ways I'm thinking about trying to do what Sarah Tulane calls above and beyond points, which is maybe just additional points for just coming to class if one of the redefinitions of success is just coming. Now in the medium term, what can we accomplish by the end of the semester? Maybe students articulate their own ideas of success and brainstorm how to do it. That could be an activity over the course of the semester. Maybe the students might design their own assignments to achieve their definitions of success. So if a student says, my definition of success is to, not only get a good grade, but also have fun, maybe have them design an assignment in which they have fun. And then, of course, students can also evaluate themselves in relation to their own student-driven definitions of success. Now, that doesn't mean you have to give them the grade that they think they give, but, incorporating some of these strategies slowly over the course of one or two classes would, for me anyway, expand those ideas, those narrow ideas about success that I've held for a long, long time. And then the long term, something across several semesters that I'm working towards is rethinking my grading system, for example. There's this popular notion of ungrading, which is just, giving feedback and moving away from that kind of punitive point-based system in which students sort of penalized for mistakes, and therefore they become afraid to make mistakes, and it really interferes in a lot of ways with their learning, and certainly with those ideas about having fun and being engaged and being encouraged to explore and to rethink the world, which of course is what I would like as a professor. And then, in the same mode, redesigning the course or courses to be more of a partnership where the instructor is a guide or a fellow traveler, rather than one based on hierarchical models, which again, I came from a very hierarchical academic background and, have had those ideas about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate and what success means, very, very narrow. And those are assumptions I've brought with me to the classroom for a long time. So I am trying to rethink those ideas, trying to redefine myself as an instructor, trying to make it more open and accessible to my students, and these are some of the strategies that I would suggest. So that's it. Thank you so much for attending this presentation. If you have any questions, you can find me at lisa.gabbert@usu.edu. Have a great day. Thanks.